Our candidates are here, and it looks like we are ready to go, so we'll go ahead and get started. Welcome to the Meet the Candidates Forum, co-hosted by Noon Kiwanis and Access Television. I'm Tom Rufer, President-elect of Noon Kiwanis, and I'd like to introduce Jack Pearson as our forum coordinator. It's our privilege to provide an opportunity for residents to become familiar with the candidates for City Council office. Today's forum will be broadcast several times on Access Television prior to the elections on Tuesday, November 4th. Today we'll meet the candidates in Ward 2, Ted Steenbach and Scott Rachels. Ward 2 represents citizens in the northeast part of the city, and these residents vote at the National Guard Armory. Audience members, if you have questions you would like asked, please submit them in writing. There is paper and pens in the entryway. If we do have time at the end of the forum to ask additional questions, they may come from those submitted. We'll open today with each candidate introducing himself and sharing with us why he's running for City Council. Both will have 3 minutes for this introduction. After that, we'll go into the question and answer sessions, and we'll be rotating who answers the questions first, so there's no unfair advantage. The answer period will be for 2 minutes. Mr. Pearson will serve as our timekeeper today. He will wave his yellow flag when there are 30 seconds remaining, and he will wave his red flag when the 2 minutes are up. This year, all of the candidates have seen these questions, so again, there is no unfair advantage to going first. We'll start the clock when you begin speaking. I won't be repeating the questions unless you request, then I'd be happy to do so. And we will conclude today by offering each candidate the opportunity to give a 2-minute closing statement. We ask that the audience please respectively listen to each candidate's answers and avoid conversations during the forum. Please hold all applause until the end of the forum. And finally, I'll ask everyone to please be sure your cell phones are turned off. All right, the candidates, if you are ready, we have randomly selected that we'll start out with Mr. Rachel's opening statement, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Scott Rachels. I lived in Fergus Falls all my life. I'm 53 years old. I lived in Fergus Falls all my life. I currently own Scott's Machine Shop. I started that business in 2012 until current today. I just started a new job on Monday. I'm a teacher for the WAP Science School for the next 8 weeks, which is a new adventure for me. I'm currently on the Public Works and Safety Committee. I'm a member of the Board of Equalization. I'm a member of the the Community Council. I'm the ex officio for the golf course, and I'm the current president of the Port Authority. And I've always wanted to give back to the community, and this is the way I thought I could do it. I've had a very good business, and it's because of this community, and that's what I wanted to do. And so I just look forward to doing it again. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Steenbach.
Good afternoon and welcome. My name is Ted Steenbach, city candidate for Ward 2. I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to be at this candidate forum today. I was born here in Fergus Falls too many years ago. Lifetime customer of local businesses. I moved to Fergus Falls 26 years ago from my farm out by Campbell, Minnesota. I farmed on my own for 44 years after helping my dad farm. Our farm is now a Century Farm. I've also worked for Dow Chemical for 30 years as a DSM and agronomist alongside of farming. Owned and operated a TV and appliance business in the 60s. Owned and operated Campbell Oil Company in the 80s with 2 full-time employees. My volunteering for the community has been serving on numerous boards, like at First Lutheran Church, Pioneer Retirement Community, Thrivent Board, Classic Car Club, and the Corvette Club. My beautiful wife, Patty, worked at Herberger's for nearly 30 years, only retiring because of a back problem. She is a lifetime resident of Fergus Falls, having been part of the Norby store saga downtown. We have 4 children and 6 grandchildren and live in Bayview Heights. I'm an active outdoors person, and in my free time enjoy spending time with friends and family and grandchildren. Hunting, fishing, snowmobiling, classic cars, and anything done outdoors. What brings me here today to this forum are my positions or thoughts on those issues that will be or already are affecting Fergus Falls as a city. My desire to be on the Fergus Falls Council is because I care for this city. Someone on the city council, I feel, should stand up for the taxpayers and their issues and concerns. I would like to be that person. Remember, if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. When visiting with the people, there seems to be a complete separation between city government and its residents and businesses. Most do not know their council representative. We will have to work towards that and become more visible. As your councilman, I will work towards that, as we need to be an outreach arm to our citizens and businesses. Fergus Falls needs to promote that we are open for business. We need to look at our city's assets and natural beauty and look at creating those job opportunities that will get young people to move here. The city should be asking, what can we do to help you with projects to move forward?
Thank you, gentlemen. Our first question will go to Mr. Steenbach. Please describe your finance and budgeting experience and what you feel the city's budget priorities should be.
Having worked for a large corporation for 30 years, we were taught to start any project with the end in mind. Working with over 1,500 farmers and a $3 million budget in a 10-county district meant you were constantly updating your budget. Farming for 44 years and ending up debt-free was no small task either. Good years and bad, you had to watch your spending closely because it was your own money at risk. Budgeting came as second nature because you either learned or you would drown. When you wrote a check out for $100,000 for property, machinery, whatever, and borrowed it at 20%, you had one heck of a commitment to your family and your finance people. I also served as property chairman for our church for 8 years. This taught me how to carefully take care of other people's money and spend wisely. The city's budget of $42 million that's a lot of money, a lot of cash. I feel that I'm up to that task. I also have concerns about the lack of community input into the initial budget process and really how little the council was given time to review a 62-page document and then approve it at that same meeting. Our budget priorities should be the streets and economic development. Recent cuts to the Historical Society of 45%, arts 50%, were decided with no discussion to any voter or taxpayer. They were decided at a council meeting with no input from our residents. Who and why has the higher power that can decide that on their own, as they need funds for other maintenance in the city?
Thank you. Mr. Rachels. Well, like Mr. Steenbach said, we have a $42 million budget, and then of that budget, $10 million is really our general budget, what we really look at. The rest of the pieces are water, sewer, sanitation, all different types of aspects, but $10 million is a part of that we really look at hard at. And not being an accountant, but having run a business, I know that we have to stick to do a budget, stick to that budget, and costs do get cut. And we are probably the leanest city I've seen in the last 4 years. Everybody's cutting and trying to keep our taxes down. Bill and Sandy are accountants. They are really good, and they do a great job. In our tax committee meeting, or I should say our budget committee, consists of the mayor and Mark and Randy Sinslin and of course Bill and Sandy, and they bring that to us, and we trust what they bring in it. We go through that, and it is a short process, like he said, but we don't finalize a budget until December 15th, I believe, or somewhere in there. And so there's time to discuss it, and things can change. We can't raise it, but we can lower it. So that's where I believe it is. In running a business, you have a budget that will move around on you quite a bit, but at the end, you still have to stick to that budget. And throughout the years, that's what I've done, and I've done very well with it, and I think the city's done very well with it too. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Rachels will start our next question. What top 3 city services or infrastructure need addressing, and why should these be priorities?
Well, the first thing everybody talks about is our streets, and the last 4 years we've done a really good job. If you can see the Mill Street, we did a nice big project over there. Fur Avenue got done this year. The river, the Tower Bridge Road was done this 2 years ago. That was a huge thing. That was a 30-year in the making. One of the things that we're looking at now, we're going to do next year is the water line through the Woodland Heights. And that's to connect our new water tower over to the northeast part of town to raise the pressures and for the fire safety. But the biggest thing, and I know we've talked about this before, is the water treatment plant. It's on its last legs, and that needs to be addressed in probably the next 5 years. And I think those are the biggest concerns we have right now, and as far as services and infrastructure.
Thank you. Mr. Steenbach.
First, as I mentioned in the previous question, the streets are important, and we as a city need a maintenance and replacement schedule. We have let our conditions of our streets deteriorate to the point that you could potentially lose a tire in a pothole, causing costly car repairs. It also sends a negative message to those who have visited our community and may be looking to move here or bring a business to Fergus Falls. People will soon avoid our community and move on to the next, namely like DL, Alexandria, wherever. Secondly, craft economic development strategies and policies that will make this a prosperous community. We need to build up an unrestricted reserve fund so that we have a fund balance that enables us to be proactive and competitive with our surrounding communities. We need to be more competitive with towns like Alec, DL, Fargo. Thirdly, we need to take care of what was once our beautiful assets. We need to stabilize the Kirkbride building, which is on the National Registry of historic buildings. We need to focus some attention on our Pebble Beach, which has been totally neglected. And lastly, we need to address the issues of Lake Alice and beautify that area. Lake Alice was a beautiful drawing card to citizens and tourists. Now it's a slough that even the ducks and geese don't like to visit.
Thank you. The next question will start off with Mr. Steenbach. Please describe your vision for business and economic growth in Fergus Falls and the steps that you will take to achieve progress toward that goal.
To be a prosperous community, we must be more business friendly. We need to be proactive rather than reactive. We need to ask existing and potential business on how we can be of assistance to them rather than throwing up roadblocks. This is what we've done to the Kirkbride from the get-go. We need to have a more positive attitude in this community. The City Council needs to review the tools that are needed for a forward-thinking economic development department and one that will be competitive with our surrounding communities. That would include building an unrestricted reserve fund. Another thing that needs to be addressed is the natural gas pipeline. There will be an increase to meet rising demand in the upcoming years. Fergus Falls must make sure we have enough supply. We are currently tapped out. We also need to start promoting our railroad infrastructure and what we can do to assist our airport, which is barely surviving. Of huge concern is that in 2020, Otter Tail Power Company will move to be closer to their natural gas supply. Our Hoot Lake will now shut down. That's only 6 years away. And so there goes $250,000 tax base and 50+ employees. We need to address this now and look at how we can grow our tax base with new and expanding rather than looking at cutting. We need to start thinking outside the box and be progressive in our planning for the future. And of course, continue to build our relationships with the area colleges and workforce center to provide the skilled labor that will be needed for our business to expand.
Thank you. Mr. Rachels?
In 2014, we lost our ESA director, and now we're on the hunt for a new ESA director. And I believe that that's the vision we need to take for the future of our business's growth in Fergus Falls. The EIC director, or the EIC board, the city council gives $160,000 a year to that board, and we're looking at if that's enough or not enough. We're trying to figure out the best way to find the right person for that job, somebody with great EIC experience that can bring business to Fergus Falls. One of the biggest things overlooked in Fergus Falls is our M-State College. The college used to be thriving at 1,200 students, and today it's down to 600 students. If we don't have people going to college there, we can't expect to have people staying here working. Right now, the service jobs, people are looking for work all the time, or looking for help all the time, and there's nobody there to fill those positions. There's 600 students missing in Fergus Falls. I believe that's where they could fill that void of the service industry. The biggest thing we have, our problem in Fergus is talking about growth. And growth is going to be either buying land or an annexation of land. And that's, I think, is the future of the Fergus, is annexation of land and buying more land, from the city buying more land, excuse me. Thanks.
Thank you. All right, our next question will go first to Mr. Rachels. In the 2013 community survey, 97% of the respondents said that the public library is an important community asset. How familiar are you with the public library renewal project, and what is your vision for the project?
I wasn't too familiar with the public library when I first came on the board, but when we started looking at different things in 2012, they did a survey on our public library comparing to other libraries of our towns, same size. We ranked the highest in visitation, the highest in checkout, and the highest in program participation. But our building is half the size of everybody else's. So I definitely am full support of a new, not a new building, add-on to our building, restructuring of our building. And I believe that can be done. We already have 1.3 million, I think, in the funding already from donations. I believe there'll be more donations, and I think in 2016, when we end the sales tax for the community ice arena, we should move ahead a year later by law to a sales tax to pay for our new public library and build a nice library.
Thank you. Mr. Steenbach?
I feel our library is very necessary. It is considered the living room of our community. I used to use the library a lot when I first moved to Fergus. It's a great community asset. I hope that we can move forward with the renewal project and that we are incorporating all the new technologies into the design of the new library and its expanded services. I reserve judgment on the library project until I see the final site plans and cost estimates and the suitability of the site. As the previous question, EIC was brought up, we have $160,000. The smallest town around us has 300,000. Alexandria has 500,000. Do you see a problem?
Okay, thank you. Start with Mr. Steenbach on our next question. The future of the Kirkbride is an ongoing community discussion. Please comment on your vision for this facility.
The Kirkbride, it's a nationally recognized historic properties that has been proposed to be our developer. They've proposed or have completed 50 projects. Mr. Wiley's attorney has completed over 300 projects. He has provided us with a reasonable project. We need to remove the roadblocks. We need to work with the current investor that we have at the table. Develop a risk mitigation strategy to move the project forward. He will be injecting $42 million into our community. He has successfully completed the Newcastle project that is equal in size to our phase 1 of our Kirkbride. Before any voting is done, I would think you would need to firm up some numbers. 2 years have gone by and no one has had any new bids proposed for demo. How could you even entertain any thoughts with all those unknowns? I suggest that someone gets recent dollar numbers before going with any more discussion. My other thoughts are tourism and history. It is a beautiful place for Summerfest and our Classic Car Club show. Everyone at both events had nothing but positive comments, and will be back next year bringing more friends and family with.
Thank you. Mr. Rachels.
Well, I believe that the Kirkbride is a very important part of our community. We have three options with that community, or with that Kirkbride. One option is to have Mr. Wiley come through with everything he's been working on for 18 months. It's time to get going. We have 2 years left before we can lose our funds for demo. I welcome him to come in with us, with his option of this $21 million first phase, to come in and get that building done. The second option is to move ahead. We started 18 months ago. I know Mr. Steenbach didn't know this. We started 18 months ago to move ahead with the feasibility of how much it was going to cost and the specifications to do this, but we were put on hold because we didn't want to interfere with Mr. Wiley's deal and have him looking at us thinking of tearing this thing down. So now, if he does not come through, we'll move ahead in that process. But until he comes with a final answer, we won't be moving ahead in that process. The third thing is to leave the Kirkbride. If Mr. Willie doesn't come through, we don't demo, we leave the Kirkbride sit and see what happens. That'll put it on the taxpayer's back. And I'm not prepared to put it on the taxpayer's back. The taxpayer is not responsible for that building, and that is our building. And so if we either, Mr. Willie comes through, or we move ahead with demo. That's where I stand, and that's what's going to have to be. I really hope Mr. Willie comes through. We'll know tomorrow or on Monday, I guess Monday night's meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next question. We'll start with Mr. Rachels. We recognize city council terms are for only 4 years, but what you do during your term lays the groundwork for the future of Fergus Falls. How would you describe Fergus Falls in the year 2024?
Well, the first thing I'd like to see is Mr. Willie completed his both phases by then. I don't know if the first phase will be done by in 4 years, but in 10 years it should be. If he doesn't complete that, if he doesn't come through with his project, the demo will be done, and we'll have a green space for, I want to call it tech industrial. When you have a 15-year tax, no real estate taxes, and you have all your infrastructure done around you for free, no assessments, that's a very good opportunity for the city to take on and bring more jobs to Fergus. I believe that the annexation in the next 10 years is going to be a big thing of our city. Woodland Heights will be coming in probably in 2016, and River Oaks will be need to look to finish up our water loop, to connect all the water from a circle, to make a circle out of our water system in the whole city. That's, I think, the future. If we don't grow, if our city doesn't grow in land, we're not going to grow anything else. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Steenbach.
I believe there's a bright future for Fergus Falls. We all have to get on the same page and pull together. It will take some careful planning, but it can happen if we all work towards a common plan. Small steps, carefully planned, can accomplish much. We need to do it for the right reasons, instead of a few with an ego and get-rich mentality. We need to revitalize and beautify the historic downtown. This would have flowers decorating our streets, benches to sit on, and music playing to enhance the downtown shopper's experience. We travel to Walker, Park Rapids quite often, and you wouldn't believe what a nice, homey atmosphere it is with music playing on Main Street. We would have increased volunteer opportunities with all in the city, a wholesome, caring community, becoming an all-American city once again. The mall would be thriving. Lake Alice would be a pleasant place to walk and skate on in the wintertime. Pebble Lake is taken care of, and the River Walk is bustling activity. The Kirkbride would be renovated, and activities would be planned for the grounds in the front. Let's bring back the beauty to the parks, and with the beautiful flower beds and manicured lawns.
Thank you. And Jack, have we gotten any questions from the audience?
My name is Charles Angus. I live at 1209 North Burlington. appreciate people willing to run for office. It's not an easy task, I'm sure of that. And one of the things that I was questioning with the people that are running against the incumbents, were running an ad where all four were on the same page. And that brought me to thinking about the reasoning behind that. Are they planning on voting as a block rather than as individuals when they come onto the, if they become elected to the council? Or are they a political organization onto themselves or whatever? And it's just a question that I had, and I'd like to have an answer from Mr. Steenbach.
And for the rest of the audience, we would like that the questions do come in writing, but I will go ahead. Do both candidates agree to answer that question?
Sure.
I don't know if I can, but yes.
Okay. We'll start with Mr. Steenbach.
We have a common interest in our city. I guess talking together, we came to the point where something has to be done progressively. You know what the opposite of progressive is? It's either recessive or whatever. So if you aren't progressive in the city as a whole, I think most of the people that are having conversations in and about the council and whatever are very concerned with what's happening with the city. I don't drive an old pickup, but it's going to be old pretty quick on the streets. I take very good care of my pickup, and I don't appreciate streets at all. So I used to go away from Fir Avenue. Now I probably use Fir Avenue all the time, even if it's way out of my way. But to your bottom line of that question, no, we're all very concerned about this city. And we just joined together as a progressive, thought-minded group. But we do have individual brains, so we can answer our own questions instead of, we disagree on a lot of things, let me tell you. One guy wants this, one guy wants that. And I'm totally against some of those things, but we all agree to disagree. And that's what you need in a community.
Thank you.
I know the question was directed to me, but I'll just make a comment. When I was elected to vote for what's best for Ward 2, and that's sort of continue to be vote what's best for the people of Ward 2. I look for input from the people, and we and sometimes I make a judgment or make a decision that it's not one that I think is right, but that I feel is right. But I've had enough input that it should be the way what they want, and it turned out that I was wrong and they were right. So you have to have a very, very open mind when you're in this job. You have to listen to everybody, and that's where I'm at. So I'm a very independent thinker, and I do vote for what's best for the city of Ward, or for Ward 2.
Thank you, gentlemen. At this time, we will move to our closing statements, and we will start out with Mr. Steenbach. You'll have
Tom, there was one question.
this isn't in a question, it's a statement. Okay, yep, I can take that one. If you want to resubmit a question. Okay, this one will start out with Mr. Rachel's. What will you do to make Fergus Falls more attractive to young people and get them engaged with city planning?
The young people is a very good question. I believe that we have to look towards them for information. You know, they can come and talk to us. As far as getting people to come to Fergus, I think the M-State, we have to work on that for a college. Our high school is growing in attendance. It was down, now it's going back up. So I'm not really sure what we could do to make it better if we need more activities under the arts. I know that's where it came from, or if we need more stuff in our library. I'm not sure which way to go, what direction to go on that. But I just know that the college is a big concern of mine, and I don't know what the city can do, but we're going to sure try help make that better.
Thank you. Mr. Steenbach.
I think we need a lot more input from our young people. Right now, they're just like our citizens and our taxpayers. They don't have any input into what's going on in the city. I'm for an open meeting law being passed again. That is a law that we've put roadblocks in, so you cannot walk into this room unless you've signed up for it by Friday noon on a form here and bring it to the council Monday night. I think that's totally at odds with what an open city meeting law should be. So somebody has rewritten that meeting law, and I don't agree with it 1%.
Okay. Thank you. This audience question will go to Mr. Steenbach. We have $700,000 left for carrying cost for the Kirkbride. This can also be used for marketing. You have spent less than $300,000 in carrying cost in the last 7 years. We have several years of money left to carry costs. What are your thoughts in regards to using the money for which it is intended?
I think it's that it should be used for what it's intended. I don't feel it should be negotiated for by demo, whatever. The thing that scares me the most is I don't think the $4 million is going to cover our demo. When it cost over $3 million to demo the incinerator, any common sense will tell you that the rest is going to cost more than that. Guess where that's coming from? Your tax dollars. We don't have any reserve fund. We don't have anything built up. That's what I brought up before. We need a reserve fund. If you don't have a reserve fund and you have an emergency, what do? You can't just write out a check and hope to heck it doesn't bounce on you. So I'm thinking that we need a reserve fund put in place in the budget every year, even if we don't use it. Our EIC was down to $60,000. You can't buy much for 60 grand. You can't even buy a new pickup for 60 grand, hardly, let alone fix a city or get new people to come into a city. You can't promote it with that small amount of money.
Thank you. Mr. Rachels.
Just to respond to what Ted said about reserve fund, I believe the state of Minnesota requires us to have a reserve fund of at least 50% of our budget for in case of emergencies like we're just talking about. So that's going to put us in that 25 to 35 range of reserve, and we do have that. Now, to answer the question, the $700,000, the $700,000 is to be used at anything we want. We didn't even have to spend it on the state hospital. It was just ours given to us to do what we wanted. The council took the decision to put that $1 million towards the state hospital, plain and simple. We've used $300,000 to mow the grass in the park out front, mow the grass around the back. We've used for marketing all the stuff that came from we needed to market for looking for a new developer. Mr. Willie's got, I think, 40-some thousand out of that money for we paid for a I can't remember what it was. We split the cost on a survey or a development. I don't remember what it is, but anyway. And what's left of the $700,000 will go to our lawyer. He hasn't been paid since 2008. He has not submitted us a bill. He doesn't want to be paid until this is done, which they're talking about $150,000, give or take. It's 40-some thousand right now. We have to demo the tunnels between the Schlossman property and the state hospital. That month, the $4.75 million can't be used for that. It's got to be used for his project, so that's going to come out of that money. And we feel that rest of that money should be set aside to save the property for the maintenance of the property. If Mr. Schlossman or Mr. Willie moves ahead, we can still use it for mowing and not come out of the taxpayer's roll. That's what we want to use. So I think there'll be about $300,000 left over when we get done if Mr. Willie comes through with the project. And we'll save that for the maintenance of it or whatever, maintenance of the property, or we could move it and use that money down the road a year into his project to fix something and, fix the roof on the tower or something, because he's not going to use the tower in this project, in the first phase. I'd support that. We're good.
Thank you. Our next question, will go first to Mr. Rachels. Why do we keep pumping money into the golf course?
Well, we give the golf course $40,000 a year. We buy equipment with that money. They did use some of it last year, and they had a bad year last year. They lost a ton of money. And they know they're on, after last year, we put them on guard. And so we sat down with them and put a budget together for them. And in January, I think, or February, we got the budget done. And now we're at the end of the year. They fulfilled their budget. They had the worst year of income ever, but they're probably going to make some money. My goal was to make $1 instead of losing 80 or 60, whatever it was. I'm not exactly sure the number. And I think they're going to reach that goal, if not more. So it's an asset of ours. We own the golf course. Should we sell it? Should we continue to put money into it? That's a discussion that's going to come up in the future. I don't know if it's for sale. I don't think nobody's talked about selling it. Privatize it. I don't know what we're going to do, but that's no more money is going there except for the $40,000. It's in the budget right now for equipment.
Thank you. Mr. Steenbach.
Well, I kind of agree with the question. Why are we pumping more money into a golf course? I'm not an avid golfer, and when we drive by there on a Sunday afternoon, you'd expect the place to be full. If you see one cart out there, you're lucky. I think we're promoting something for people that don't live in Fergus Falls. I think if we take a poll on how many people actually use that facility, it would be scary to see what the small number would be. So I have the same question. Why are we pumping money into the golf course?
Thank you, gentlemen. And now at this point, we will move into our closing statements. Again, we'll start with Mr. Steenbach. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to complete their closing statement.
We can have our old city back again if we believe in it together. I've proposed let's have coffee with the mayor on Saturday mornings, just like coffee with the coaches, only at the senior center with council members and citizens attending and visiting about the good things that are happening in the city instead of always being negative. I believe that decisions on major issues or projects should be made by elected officials rather than hired people. I will thank you for your attendance, and I would appreciate your vote at the Armory on November 4th.
Thank you. Mr. Rachels.
I would just like to thank Tom and Noon Kiwanis for putting this forum on. It's a great time to get out and get your views expressed. The future of the Fergus is, I believe in this vote on November 4th is going to be a big issue is the Kirkbride. And people just have to decide what they want on the Kirkbride. Are we going to move ahead with Mr. Willie? Yes, we will. The council will move ahead with Mr. Willie if he comes through. If he doesn't come through, what's the council going to do? The council is going to sit back and look at the specs and price of the demolition and make a decision on that. Will we leave it sit? If we leave it sit, we can do that, but it comes on the back of the taxpayers. And we're out looking for the back of the taxpayer. We don't want to add tax on to maintain that building because it's a huge building. It's a quarter mile long. It's 700,000 square feet. It's got 50-some thousand squares of roof on it. It's a lot of money to fix that, and that's where a lot of money is going to go for Mr. Willie if you look at his proposal. I just think that I don't want to put the tax. Ted's got a lot of good ideas, and I agree with everything he says on some of the things about getting more money involved. But the money comes from the taxpayers. It just doesn't come from everywhere. We have to. It's on our taxpayers' back, and we need to look at what we want for the forward or for the future of Fergus. Do we need to raise the EIC rate? Yes, I believe we do, but it comes on the taxpayers. If we go from 160 to double it, that's 3% more we're going to put on the taxpayers' roll. I just look forward to doing this. I had a great time last 4 years. I enjoyed everybody. We have a wonderful staff. You can't believe how good a staff we have. So I just look forward to you vote on November 4th. Get out and vote, and I hope you vote for me. Thanks.
Thank you again, gentlemen. And that concludes our forum today. Thank you all for attending. Our final in the series of Meet the Candidate forums will be held here tomorrow at noon for Ward 3. Thank you and have a great day.
See how it goes.
Yep.